I arrived at the Jeepney terminal at 4 o'clock, long before the city woke up. The sky was still black, the streets empty except for a few tricycle drivers sipping instant coffee. Today, I wasn't just filming a story. I was stepping into a Jeepney driver's world. This wasn't tourism. This was labor, routine, and survival. Mang Jun, the driver I would follow for the next 18 hours, greeted me with a tired but warm smile. "You ready, Danny?" he asked as he handed me a small flashlight. I didn't expect my day to start with a tool, but he immediately put me to work. My first task was checking the headlights, tapping the tires, and looking for leaks under the engine. In Korea, safety checks are automated or managed by the company. Here, the responsibility sits entirely on the driver's shoulders, and today, partly on mine. Inside the Jeepney, the heat was already rising despite the early morning. There was no air conditioning, no electronic systems, no ticket machines, just a metal body, a fan taped to the dashboard, and a handwritten fare chart. I sat in the passenger seat and felt the rawness of the environment. Every vibration from the engine went straight through the floorboards and into my feet. When Mang Jun turned the key, the Jeepney roared awake. He looked at me and laughed. This is our alarm clock every day. I felt a mix of excitement and guilt. He has done this every single morning for 20 years, while I was experiencing it for the first time with a camera in my hand. As we rolled out of the terminal, he explained his reality. No driving means no income. No income means no food. There was no stable salary, no sick leave, no guarantee. Every day was a new calculation: diesel cost, number of passengers, traffic conditions, possible breakdowns. As he spoke, I could feel the weight on his shoulders, heavier than any gear shift. Sitting beside him before sunrise, watching the city slowly light up, I realized this journey wouldn't just show how a jeepney moves, it would show how a Filipino family survives. Today, I wasn't just observing. I was living a jeepney driver's day, 1 kilometer, 1 peso, one breath at a time. The sky was still dark blue when we pulled out of the terminal for the first official ride of the day. The city felt half asleep, but the jeepney was already alive. As soon as we stopped at the first corner, a market vendor carrying baskets climbed aboard. She handed me a few coins instead of paying Mang Jun directly, my first taste of the jeepney's unique payment chain. I passed the coins forward like a relay runner, and Mang Jun returned the change with one quick glance. No calculator needed. His accuracy was shocking. More passengers stepped in: construction workers, students in uniform, a mother with a sleeping child. The jeepney filled up fast. I squeezed myself next to the metal railing, trying not to bump knees with the people beside me. The air grew warmer. Every movement of the engine vibrated through the bench seats. As we drove, the first sunlight hit the city in a slow fade. The roads were narrow, uneven, and chaotic cars cutting in without signals, motorcycles weaving through impossible gaps. I asked Mang Jun how he stayed calm. He smiled without looking away from the road. "You learn to read the traffic, not the rules." That line said everything. In Korea, rules guide drivers. Here, instinct does. I tried collecting fares for him when the jeepney got too crowded. The first time a student handed me coins, I froze for a second. The entire jeepney laughed, including the driver. "Welcome to the job, Danny," one passenger shouted in Tagalog. The energy felt communal, like everyone on board understood that this wasn't just transportation. It was shared life. The more I helped, the more I realized how much multitasking a driver handles: steering, counting fares, returning change, watching pedestrians, predicting sudden stops. No digital system, no automated support, just raw attention and experience. I felt overwhelmed after 20 minutes, but this was only the beginning for Mang Jun. As the sun finally broke through the skyline, the jeepney moved into heavier traffic. Honks grew louder, exhaust fumes thicker. Yet inside the vehicle, people talked softly, laughed, or simply stared out the window. Despite the chaos outside, the atmosphere inside felt strangely peaceful. This wasn't just commuting. This was a moving micro-community. rebuilt every few minutes with new faces and new stories. And from my seat next to the driver, I could feel myself slowly becoming part of it. By 7 o'clock, the quiet rhythm of dawn was gone. Manila had fully awakened, and the jeepney was suddenly pulled into a different world. A world of honking, shouting, and endless streams of people trying to get somewhere fast. The heat rose sharply, even though the sun wasn't high yet. I wiped sweat from my forehead while Mang Jun shifted gears with one hand and collected fares with the other. It felt like watching a musician perform under pressure. Traffic thickened as we moved closer to the business district. Cars pushed in from every angle. Motorcycles sliced through gaps no wider than a backpack. And pedestrians crossed whenever they felt brave enough. In Korea, traffic flows like a system here. It feels like a negotiation every second. At one intersection, a delivery truck blocked half the lane. Instead of waiting, jeepneys and tricycles created their own paths around it, forming 3 improvised lanes on a road designed for one. I tightened my grip on the metal bar as we squeezed through. "Normal morning," Mang Jun laughed. I wasn't sure whether to laugh or pray. Passengers kept rotating in and out, office workers, teachers, vendors carrying oversized bags. Each time someone passed coins to me, I felt the collective rhythm, people trusting strangers to help the system run. Even in chaos, cooperation existed. The heat became its own character. Without air conditioning, the inside felt like a moving oven. Wind from the open side helped, but only when we were actually moving traffic made sure that didn't last long. I watched Mang Jun wipe sweat with a towel tucked under his seat, never complaining, never slowing down. The noise, the heat, the constant movement, everything overwhelmed me. Yet I could feel the city's pulse through it all. This wasn't disorder, it was survival choreography. And I realized something important: you can't understand Filipino life without sitting inside this storm at least once. By 10 o'clock, we had been on the road for nearly 6 hours. My clothes were sticking to my back from the heat, and my arms felt heavy from collecting fares. Mang Jun, however, drove with the same steady rhythm as if he had just started. When he finally pulled over near a small carinderia, he turned to me and said, "Danny, this is our only real rest." The place was simple plastic chairs, metal tables, a big pot of steaming sinigang, and trays of fried bangus and vegetables. The smell of garlic rice drifted through the air. We sat down, and for the first time that day, I watched Mang Jun slow down. No honking, no passengers calling bayad po, no tight corners to navigate. Just a man taking a breath. He ordered 2 plates of tapsilog and insisted on paying. I tried refusing, but he shook his head. "You worked with me this morning. You help, you eat." His generosity felt heavier than the plate in front of me. I realized that despite the constant pressure of his job, he still found room to be kind. As we ate, he talked about his life, how he started driving at 22, how he raised 3 kids from jeepney earnings, how rising fuel prices cut his income almost in half. There was no bitterness in his voice, just honesty. In Korea, meal breaks are scheduled. Here, breaks depend on luck, traffic, passenger flow, road conditions. If the roads are busy, drivers skip meals entirely. Other jeepney drivers sat nearby, sharing stories, laughing, trading updates on roadblocks or police checkpoints. It felt like a community built out of necessity. No uniforms, no company hierarchy, just people relying on each other to survive the day. I tried to imagine doing this job every day for decades. The noise, the heat, the stress, the responsibility of carrying strangers safely through chaotic streets. I felt tired after a morning. Drivers like Mang Jun do this for a lifetime. When we finished eating, he stood up, wiped sweat from his forehead, and smiled. "Break is over, Danny. Back to the road." And just like that, the calm disappeared, replaced again by the roar of the engine and the weight of another long shift ahead. By the time afternoon slipped into evening, the city felt heavier, slower, almost exhausted. And so was I. But Mang Jun kept going with the same steady rhythm, guiding the jeepney through rush hour like he had done thousands of times before. The heat inside the cabin didn't fade. It simply changed from boiling to humid, mixing with the smell of gasoline drifting through the open windows. Passengers kept coming, students heading home, workers finishing their shifts, families carrying bags of groceries. I helped collect fares whenever I could, and every time coins passed through my hand, I felt the same quiet respect. These weren't just fares. These were tiny pieces of someone's daily struggle, workers paying from their hard-earned peso, students saving every bit they could, parents budgeting for dinner. At one point, a mother with 3 kids got on. She had only small bills and apologized repeatedly as she tried to organize the fare. Mang Jun gently waved it off and said, "Bukas na lang, tomorrow is fine." She smiled with relief. That small act said more about Filipino culture than any travel documentary ever could. Compassion beats calculation. Community over efficiency. As darkness settled, Mang Jun pulled over at a quieter spot, where he always ends his route. He exhaled deeply, the first real sign of fatigue I had seen all day. Then came the part I was most curious about: the accounting. He opened a worn-out notebook, took the handful of coins and bills he collected, and began sorting fuel expenses, boundary payment, the daily rental fee for the jeepney, money for food, savings for his family, and whatever remained. When he finished, he turned the notebook toward me. The number wasn't high. After almost 18 hours on the road, his take-home income for the day was less than what many office workers earn in a few hours. But he didn't complain. He simply nodded, closed the notebook, and said, "Danny, tomorrow again." That routine, that acceptance, hit me harder than the heat or the traffic ever could. Standing beside the jeepney under dim streetlights, I realized this experience wasn't about transportation, culture, or travel content. It was about dignity. The dignity of a man waking up before sunrise, carrying strangers safely through chaotic streets, and returning home with enough to keep his family alive. We shook hands, and his grip was firm, tired, but proud. "Salamat, Danny," he said. "You felt our life today." I nodded, unable to say much. I had spent one day in his world, but he spends a lifetime in it. As he drove off into the night, I stood there in the fading sound of the engine, knowing that no future video, no narration, no edit would ever fully capture what I learned today. A jeepney isn't just a vehicle. It is the heartbeat of Filipino survival, and the people who drive them carry more weight than any passenger will ever see.